right, and we should.
Be live. Okay. Well, welcome back, you guys, to more T-Bait. More T-Bait today. We got chapter 466. Now, it's just come to my realization that 467 apparently is delayed. So I thought I was going to be getting two chapters today. I thought that's what I was going to be doing, but this is going to be just one for now. Um, I'll just do the next one, either Friday or Saturday. Probably most likely Saturday. Um, we might have two chapters. I don't know if it's going to be released today or tomorrow. I'm not entirely sure, but 466 just for today. But but yeah. So last chapter, I remember we ended up, because I know it's been like 2 weeks now, but last chapter, I remember it was the fight and finding what is his name? What is his name? What is his name? The fucking big Reynolds' friend from the Twin Horns. I forget his name, but Helen ended up dying. I think it was. Let me double check, because I think it might have been Helen, or no, it might. You know what? Let me double check. Let me not put my foot in my mouth. Let me see. Durden, right? It was Durden. Angela Rose. That's who it was. Angela Rose. It wasn't Helen. I'm just like, no, I don't think it was Helen. Angela Rose. Angela Rose ended up dying last chapter. And so Durden stayed alive. Makes no sense to me why Durden's still alive, but Durden's alive. And that was like the one thing I was complaining about, was just the fact that, like, how Durden is alive after everything that had happened. Don't make any sense. I'm assuming that it was a Wraith that ended up finding out that Arthur wasn't there. And so if it was a Wraith that found out that Arthur wasn't there, that Wraith should have killed everybody. I mean, I guess it's possible that he could have like passed out and maybe was unconscious, but then why him? Why only him? I'm not sure how many people was down there exactly, but it wasn't that many, right? Under 10. Like, how the hell is he still alive? And how is Angela dead? And he not dead? So it just doesn't make sense. But he's alive. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's not on a level of like Aldir just deciding that I'm gonna just stay in the ether realm and waste away. Like, it's not as bad as that, but it just don't make any sense. But with that being said, so they found out that he wasn't there, and so I'm guessing they're going to just check all the different places that he got his mana, signature at, or not mana, but his ether signature at, along with Sylvie and Regis or whatever. And we're gonna just see kind of like the results of them checking every place. But we're not sure. I mean, my thing is this: it they found out pretty quick. Like, that fight and everything that happened at the wall, that didn't last for very long. So I'm just thinking that, like, if he can get through these different locations in, like, I don't know, what do you want to say, like 30 minutes or so? Like, if you can get through every location in 30 minutes, like, I don't know. I don't know, because I was trying to remember, did Ellie leave a signature? Because he's in a deeper part of the, not the relic tombs. What the hell is it called? The sanctuary, I think that's what it was called. But he's in like a deeper part of that. So I'm not sure if they left the signature of him there too. I don't know. I think they did. I think Ellie did leave a signature of his presence being there too. So I'm just wondering how long it's going to take for them to find him, and then when they do find him, what the hell is going to happen? Because if he's vulnerable and he's starting a new life, I wonder if we're going to get it, like the details of his new life, or
he's gonna wake up and
either he knows about fate or he doesn't know about fate, type of thing. Well, actually, no. He's not gonna wake up if he doesn't know about fate. So he's gotta know about fate in order to wake up. So anyway, let's just get into the chapter. Um, so words almost said. That makes me think that like it's some type of confession or something, or about to confess, but then you decide to hold back a confession or something. It makes me think about like a love confession or something, like words almost like I'm not gonna say that right now, like that type of thing. Like I was gonna say it, but I didn't say it. But Seth Melview, maybe Seth Melview is expressing some type of love or something. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. But uh, but let's get into it. Hopefully, my reading today is pretty solid. Pretty solid. Hopefully. But let me go. Let me turn just a little bit more. Okay, I think that's good. But Seth Melview. I gotta get up here in a second. Give me a second. Give me 1 second. Let me get something to do really quick. I'll be back. Okay. Okay. So Seth Melview. The couple hours after the race arrival, Anagrona's message seemed like a fever dream. I think that's, yeah, fever dream. Lawton Denor, Sella Drusus, and the others weren't the last to succumb to our cursed rooms. And there was just no way to come to terms with the person next to you spontaneously combusting in a cloud of their own destructive magic. Just as there was no way to come to terms with the fact that I was being asked to pick up a weapon and take lives to save my own. The lives of people who Professor Gray had convinced to give us a chance. We didn't spring into action immediately. So I was wondering, okay, so this was a question I had. I was wondering, was Ceres telling them to fight back against Agrona? Or was she telling them to fight against the Dicathians? Because I don't think, based off of what Agrona wanted them to find Arthur. That's what he said. He wanted them to find Arthur. But they don't have to fight Dicathians in order to find him. Not necessarily. So I didn't know for sure which one she wanted them to do. But I guess this kind of explains it. This explains that she actually wanted them to fight against the Dicathians, which is weird. I don't know why she phrased it the way she did. Anyway, let's just try to get through the chapter and not take all year. So we didn't spring into action immediately. Our people had to be collected from across the borderland, the farthest of which was a journey of a few hours. Lady Ceres was receiving our strategy and instruction from Perhada. So they're really going through this, at least as far as we know. So they were receiving their instructions from Perhada, and we were waiting for additional mages from Alacrian. Lyra had handed me over to the quartermaster to help distribute equipment, and I was almost glad to be shuffled out off the large meeting hall, out of sight and out of mind, where I stood behind a crate of spears and handed them out one by one to all who approached. In the absence of a need for logical thought, my mind wandered desperately and almost vindictively. When Circe went to war in Dicatha, she had little choice. He must be talking about his sister. She had little choice. But at least she had been a soldier going to war. She thought she was fighting for her home and blood, and that by doing
by doing it,
by doing it well, she could provide me a better life when our parents couldn't. But this was different.
I made friends with the cat
And had seen the rot at the heart.
It would be wrong to take the lives of others
just to extend my own, just because the High Sovereign held
a guillotine over my neck.
The way that guillotine is spelled is fucking stupid.
Really, really stupid. How come I can't see
any? Let's see. What's up, Micah? What up, though? But yeah, so yeah, he's holding the guillotine over his neck. Guillotine is spelled retarded because the English language is retarded. I glanced at Lyra Drive, who was overseeing things, encouraging those who hesitated, pushing all to action. Lady Sarah and Lyra had so much more of the High Sovereign's cruelty than I ever would, and yet they both chose life. What did that say about them? What does it say about me? I wondered. Handing a spear to a young woman I recognized from Central Academy, but whom I didn't know personally. She nodded firmly and moved on to collect the shield from Enola High Frost. From Enola of High Blood Frost. You got Enola there too? Man. Let's see exactly what Sarah's plan is. Who was standing grim-faced nearby. Maybe it would be better to refuse, like the others. Go up quick, burn out like a candle flame. I felt my throat constrict as I considered it. Not so long ago, I might have welcomed death as an end to my sickness and suffering. Then Circe had succeeded where all the other centuries had failed in charting the Elves' magical forest.
And mother and father had gone away to establish themselves in Eleanor.
Unwire, because the end.
And I'd been
I've been cured and had met Professor Gray
and Mela
and the rest of the students at the academy. For the first time in my life, I
had something to live for.
And the cost was too high. How many lives would I have to trade for my own? I bit back a sudden dark, humorless chuckle. None, probably. I wasn't a soldier. It was more than likely that I'd be cut down in the first minute of the fighting, and I'd die anyway. The thought brought a sort of peaceful calm with it, easing the torture ache behind my eyes. I shouldn't die on his terms. If I have to end, shouldn't I do it? Shouldn't I do so the right way? So I kind of like what Seth is like the way that he's explaining it. You know, like his thought process with everything that's happening. You know, it's just like, okay, I'm recognizing that this is wrong. Like, even if I'm gonna die if I don't do it, like, do I really need to do this to save my own life? You know, it just shows his humanity, where it's just like everything is not always about him. It's about, you know, he has morals, right? But we gonna see what he's doing because he hasn't done anything yet. So right now he's just discussing it. But you know, if they ever get into the actual fight where he does have to fight somebody, like I think that's gonna be the real tell-all of, like, you know, what does he really stand for. But right now he's just talking about, you know, just contemplating whether or not this is the right decision or not. But there's no consequences right now because he hasn't fought anybody. But we'll see. Hitting a spear. I forgot where I was at. Male nurse for the first time in my life. Okay, I thought that was a piece of conscience. Okay. I closed my eyes, unresponsive to the line of men and women still waiting for their weapons, and took a deep breath. High Sovereign, I hope you can hear me. If you can, listen very carefully. My name is Seth Melview. My sister was Circe. Silas was my father, and how do you say her name? Sarais? It could be Sarais. Sarai is my mother. They have all died for this war, for you, but I will not. A commotion from the, I guess he was like, I refuse, is what I think he was going to say. A commotion from outside interrupted my thoughts. The lines for weapons. I wonder if he can really hear their thoughts, though. That's some crazy ass shit. I don't think he can. A commotion from outside interrupted my thoughts. The lines for weapons and armor were breaking apart as people tentatively made their way out into the.
Looking around, Enola cast
a dark look and then left her posting. Okay, what's happening? Curiosity waging a war against the unthought words still burning in the back of my mind. I followed more slowly, almost clinging to the walls, nervous to leave the shelter they provided from the chaotic swell of activity throughout the encampment. Outside, in an open space near one of the raised fields, several instillers had set up a large rectangular frame out of some dark material. It was powered by metallic blue wiring connected to large mana crystals. What the hell is this? A portal already shined within the frame, and people were beginning to step out. I don't know why it's not. Let me see. Go. My heart sank. I recognized some of them as members of the Bloods that had accepted the High Sovereign's invitation to abandon the rebellion and return to their normal lives. Yet they supposedly offered to end the fighting in response to the dragon's presence in Daikatha. Those who arrived looked afraid and confused. They were armed much more effectively than our ragtag collection of weapons and armor, but they utterly failed to maintain any semblance of order. Sarah, shadowed by the Wraith, Prahada, attempted to maintain at least a bit of organization, offering the force's leaders quick instructions about where to go and how long it would be. Okay, so the people who decided to not go through the portal with Sarah's back when they was in the relic tombs holding off Dragoth, they all got, rounded up together, got their equipment and everything, got their weapons, and they're like the force that's about to go and try to. I mean, the main thing is just look for Arthur at this point. I think that's the objective, the main objective. Those are they look confused, and Prada getting quick instructions about where to go and how long it will be. But I didn't take in any of her words. My focus, my entire consciousness, honed in on a single point. Is it Mela? Didn't Mela stay? Yeah. Mela stayed because of her sister, right? Yeah. Right. Even with her long brown hair hidden beneath a leather helm, Mela was unmistakable. Yo, man, what the fuck are they about to kill his love? Yo, like that's some shit. That's some shit if they do something like that. If they kill her off, man, they just Like I said, her bright eyes, wet with tears and crinkled in worry, shone like beacons through the press of bodies that surrounded her. She clutched an oversized pike close against her chest, the sharp tip pointing straight up in the air, and she looked around her with obvious terror. Breaking into a run, I pushed my way past the other people, barely registering that they were just as out of place and uncomfortable as Mela, trying to reach her. She was being pushed along with her battle group within a larger portal of mostly young Alacrians, none of whom I recognized aside from her. I searched their faces for an older girl who looked like Mela, but no one matched that description. Although it wasn't much to be relieved about. At least it seemed as though her sister hadn't been sent as well. As an unadorned, it was unlikely that Lorne would have survived even moments in battle with Daikathian mages. Mela, I shouted, waving one hand over my head. Mela, over here! She frowned, her neck twisting this way and that as she searched the milling soldiers for who was shouting. Through a gap between two huddled battle groups, her eyes met mine, and she broke down into sobs. Bruh, so I was right, man. I was questioning. I was like, okay, words haven't said or whatever. I'm just like, okay, is this like some words that Seth hasn't said to his love or something? But yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. She frowned. Oh yeah, so she burst. She broke down into sobs. I burst through the others and had to rein myself in so I didn't knock her down when I ran into her. Still, we came together like storm-tossed waves against seashore cliffs, knocking a struggling breath from both of us. A breathless laugh wheezed through Mela's crying, and I choked on the many. Man, this is crazy. This is fucked though. This is so fucked. Cause I wonder what's up with her sister though. Hopefully her sister's actually safe. I don't know why the messages aren't staying up so I can see them. Yeah, I know. That shit sucks, man. That shit sucks. But she's there because of her sister. I think that's her only family that's left, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure about her. I think her mother and father might still be alive. I'm not sure. But So yeah, so a breathless last wheezed through Mayla's crying. I choked on the many, is that contemplating? Competing? What the fuck? Competing? Emotions. Yeah, I think it's competing. Emotions tumbling through my own chest. Okay. A heavily armored young man who was a foot taller and 100 pounds heavier than me grabbed Mayla's shoulder. Back in line, Fairweather. We need. Despite his obvious physical advantage, I pierced him with a white, hot glare, and he jerked his hand away as if he'd been burned, regarding me uncertainly for a couple of seconds, then shrugged and rejoined the rest of the medical. He was like, "Nah, I don't want nothing to do with you, bro." Even though Seth isn't no pushover, but like, he didn't want to have nothing to do with that. He gave him that death glare. Vitra, Seth, what's going on? Mayla asked after a few more long moments, her voice strained. What are you doing here? Didn't they tell you where you were going? I asked. She shook her head weakly. We're in Decathlon, right? We were all rounded up and brought to Tagram Kalin. I thought they were going to kill us. And they did, a few anyway, when they said they wouldn't fight, because that's why we'd been gathered together, to be armed and sent to fight in Decathlon. So yeah, so they gathered them up, and the people who didn't fight, they were killed, and they used them as an example. I was shaking my head in disbelief. It's worse than that, Mayla. The High Sovereign, he's searching for Professor Gray. That's what we're doing, fighting our way across Decathlon to search for him. And if we refuse, my eyes narrowed, a hot blade of anger cutting through the confusion of all those other emotions. He's turning the runes against us, Mayla, burning us up with our own magic. She somehow paled even further, her eyes flaring. That's not... It is, I assured her desperately. He can sense it in us, that hesitation and refusal. If you even think you aren't going to follow him, he'll scorch you from the inside out. I quickly explained everything that had happened, my will to refuse service waning. Mayla grew more shocked with every word and was left empty and drained by the time I had finished. Unexpectedly, she suddenly brightened as some thought struck her. But Professor Gray, Arthur Lewin, he can fight back against Agrona. If we do find him, we can... Bruh, yo, they got the faith. They got the faith in gospel, man. But little do they know, he's not here. He's not here to fight. Man. So yeah, he can fight back against Agrona. If we do find him, we can... I shook my head frantically and squeezing her hand tight. Don't even think about it. Whatever happens or doesn't, just focus on fighting our way through to the professor. That's it. She seemed hesitant. But what if... She swallowed, clearly not wanting to finish the sentence. We'll take care of each other, I said firmly, trying to believe it. Even if I had been ready to make that decision for myself, I couldn't ask Mayla to do it too. Neither could I take the easy way out and leave her to fight and maybe die in this battle alone. We'll form our own battle groups and do what we've been told in our own way. I was scrambling, searching for any path through this, but I was careful to control my thoughts. I wasn't refusing service, and neither was Mayla. We are complying, I thought forcefully. That's crazy, man, that you gotta like think, but then you can't think too much, because if you think too much, your runes just fucking start burning your mana away and start killing you. Like, that's crazy. I mean, but it makes so much sense, because he wouldn't empower a group of people that he couldn't control. He wouldn't just let them do... But you know what I think this has to do with? This might have to do with that table. This might have to do with a lot of shit, man. He got a lot of secrets that he hasn't even revealed at all. So, I mean, he can't just do this anytime he wants. It's got to be some sort of, like, mechanism or some sort of, like, like a sequence or something. Something that he got to, like, activate in order for him to actually do all this. But that's wild, though. Like, what I mean is, he can't just do this with a thought. You know, he can't just be like, all right, you don't want to follow my orders? You know, wave a hand and you fucking, start killing yourself with your own runes or whatever. So I think it's some sort of, like, mechanism or something. But that's wild though. But I mean, I wonder what. I wonder what. You think it might be a one-time thing? I don't think so. I mean, why would he make it just one time? You know, I mean, because my thing is that okay. So let's go with that. Let's say if it's one time. So when does it run out? Like, is it like I flip this switch one time and then it activates and then it lasts for like 48 hours or 72 hours and then it doesn't work anymore? I don't think it's one time. I think it's like some sort of like sequence that he has to do, put some stuff together, got some runes. It has to be room related, right? So it has to be like some rune that he has that he like can activate, and then that's what gets all this going, and then he can power it off probably. Maybe he got mana crystals, some shit to power the runes, like, you know what I'm saying? Like he probably got something, and then he can activate it and deactivate it, and it might take a while to actually activate, right? He might need some people to help him do it. So that's what I'm thinking. But I mean, at the end of the day, we don't really know. I guess it's important for us to know how long it lasts. Like, does it last forever? Does it last until, you know, the time limit? Like, if they wait long enough, will it finally disappear? You know, so that's important. The time limit is important. But as far as whether he can activate it again or not, I don't think that's going to be that important. But I think he can. I think it's something that he can activate again. But that's just my opinion. So anyway, so let's see what happens now with them. All right, so where was I at? Okay, I couldn't ask us. Wait, what was I? We all complied. Okay, holding her hand, I began pulling her away from the lines of Alacrian still filling through the portal, and I had another revelation. Ceres and Lyra, they aren't fighting back against these orders because they can't ask us all to sacrifice ourselves, right? Because it seems like Ceres might be able to fight back against it. I'm just getting that feeling that she could, but she doesn't want them all to follow her, because if they all try to follow her, they're going to end up dying. That's why she tried to tell them, like, close off your thoughts and all this other stuff, because they all can't do it the way that she can and that probably Lyra can. And so if they were to actually just do what they want to do, the people will try to follow them and they'll all end up dying, and she doesn't want them all to just get killed like that. So I think that she's just going on. I wonder what her plan is though. I wonder if she saw this coming. That's what I also wonder. I wonder if Sarah saw this coming, this ability to be able to control them with the runes. She probably did, you know, because she's been alive for a long time, so she probably did. Okay, so Ceres and Lyra, they aren't fighting back against these orders because they can't ask us all to sacrifice ourselves. That was it. That was the trap. Even those of us who wouldn't fight to save our own lives would for our bloods, our families, the people my eyes jumped to Mela and away again, even more quickly, loved. Where are we going? Mela asked, stumbling along beside me. To find the rest of our battle group, I explained firmly. I mean, yeah, they probably, I'm with you, Micah. They probably can just stall. That's like their only tactic right now, is just to stall. But then again, what happens when they actually got to kill some Dicathans? You know, like, are they going to be, I don't know, morally held responsible for that? Or is it going to be like, hey, you were only doing it so that you wouldn't die, you know, but you still kill people that you didn't want to kill, you know? So I don't know. We'll see. So where are we going? We're find the rest of our battle group, I explained firmly, searching the crowd for familiar faces. When I caught sight of who I wonder if what's his name? What's Arthur's like step uncle from Alacria? I wonder if he's going through this too, or if is it Durden or Darren? It might be Darren. I wonder if Darren's going through it too. The one that's taking care of the kids, the foster kids and shit at his house. I wonder if they're all going through it too, because he got rooms. So, or is it just for, I don't know, man. This is wild. This is wild. So anyway, they're going to find the rest of the battle group, I explained firmly. Searching the crowd for familiar face. When I caught sight of who I most hoped to see, I waved. Enola of high blood. Enola could probably resist it. Enola's strong, man. Enola's strong. So Enola could probably resist it too. Enola said something to the. Oh yeah, Enola High Blood Ross was easy to spot. Her golden hair practically glowed in the sun. She was standing with some members of her blood, but thankfully her intimidating grandfather wasn't present. They all turned to look at me when I shouted her name, and I felt myself shrinking as my steps faltered. Enola said something to the others, then broke away and marched swiftly towards us. I stopped, glad to be able to speak out, glad to be able to speak out of earshot of her blood. What is it, Seth? Shouldn't you, Mela? Enola regarded the other girl skeptically. Is it true then? They're forcing everyone associated with Lady Sarah's to fight? Mela filled Enola in on what she'd experienced, adding a few details that she omitted previously, like the piles of bodies that retainer Mawar used to make an example of anyone too frightened to comply with orders, or the fact that she was basically kidnapped from her own home by a couple of goons, leaving her mother and sister screaming after her. It wasn't just those who walked away from Sarah's rebellion in the relic tombs that came through the portals, however. Their entire extended bloods, at least those who were mages, were forced to fight as well. And many residents of Sesklar who were only tangentially connected to the rebel forces had been caught up in this too. Virtuous horns, Enola cursed, her nostrils flaring. All this is for what? A wild Wolgar chase through Dicathan for the professor? I can't believe that after everything, I still ended up fighting in the High Sovereign's armies. Professor Gray, he said. She trailed off and shook her head slightly. Never mind. So what is it you want from me? I cleared my throat and shuffled uncomfortably. Mela and I have no blood here. I haven't received a battle group posting, and she is placed with strangers who don't know her and whom she can't trust with her life. We've trained together, and we all know what's happening. If we stick together, Enola's stare was intense and even a bit intimidating, but when I trailed off, she didn't hesitate to answer. My blood has formed battle groups of their own, but I wouldn't see the two of you cast off. I'll join you. Together we can keep. I like this. Okay, so they're joining in together. Okay, this is cool. Because Enola's the strongest out of all they ass. So she can probably be able to keep them safe. But are they really about to fight the Cathans though? Like, that's going to be crazy, man. That's going to be crazy. So I'll join you. Together we can keep each other alive and proceed with this mission in a way that would not stain our honor. I breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, thank you. Mela practically fell forward and wrapped her arms around Enola, making the other girl look extremely uncomfortable. Thanks, she let out through a choked sob, then pulled away and cleared her throat, standing a little taller. Thank you, she said again more firmly. I'm a striker, obviously, and Mela, you're a sentry, Enola asked. When Mela answered affirmatively, Enola inspected me closely. I can't seem to recall talking to you about your runes or training, Seth. What role do you fill? I rolled the back of my neck nervously. I'm flexible. It seems like we need a shield most, but I can work as a caster as well. Enola blinked. Wait, how does this motherfucker can do multiple things though? I don't remember this. So he could be a caster and he could be a shield. Can he also be a sentry and he also can be a striker? Like, yo, what is this? Jack of all trades? What do you mean? Someone began shouting behind me, and I flinched instinctively. Irritated with myself for my skittishness, I forced myself to straighten. My emblem is a bit more flexible than most, I guess. Enola's light brows rose, but her eyes flicked past me, prompting me to turn and look. Simply unfair! A rotting branch is reason to prune it, not to rip up the entire tree by the root and cast it into the fire. A young woman with brown skin and dark eyes was making a scene. Lyra was cutting through the crowd toward her. I didn't recognize the woman, but I did know two of the people who surrounded her, clearly her blood. Director Ramsayer. These names are familiar to me. Ramsayer attempted to speak to her, trying to assure her of something, but she was refusing to look at him. Was this the person that Arthur fought before he got that trip? Like the little training montage you did with the guy and the girl, and he fucked them up without even like having like a little bit of fucking ether left. And I wonder if it's her, because her grandfather was also like a director or something like that. I don't know, her uncle. I don't know. As startling as it was to see the director here of all places, though, seeing Valen. Okay, I know Valen. Valen is the one kid who was like, they were all bullying Seth. And then Valen like had respect for Arthur, and then he had a little bit of respect for Seth, and then they stopped bullying him and shit. So I remember Valen. And Valen was also the one, he got a regalia, I think. I think Valen got a regalia. And he ended up talking to Arthur and shit when Arthur was like on the balcony or something like that. And he was telling him like, you know, even though your parents want you to do this, you know, you need to figure out what you want to do and do it quickly so that way you don't disappoint them or, you know. But he was saying that he wanted the freedom to be able to choose to do what he wanted to do. Not that he didn't want to do what they wanted him to do, but he wanted the freedom to be able to choose to do it. So yeah, I think he got a regalia or some strong ass rune or some shit like that. So I remember Valen. So Valen standing several feet away, his arms crossed and back to his blood, a horrible scowl on his face was even more so, but his eyes were red and his dark skin wan and almost sickly looking, and I immediately felt a pang of worry for him. Lyra raised her voice as well, pointing at Ramsir Blood accusingly. When Valen noticed me watching him, he cast a disparaging glance over his shoulder and marched quickly away from the commotion, which had gathered quite a bit of attention. You were aligned with Lady Sarys, Enola said in disbelief, bordering on disgust. Wait, what? You were aligned with Lady Sarys, Enola said in disbelief. Who is she talking to? Of course not, Valen snapped with his usual superior air. But my cousin, Augustine, failed to hold some city against Arthur Lewin. Huh, his cousin, Augustine. Valen. I think I'm talking about the right guy, right? I'm talking about the right guy, right? He was over the school. I think I'm talking about the right guy, Valen. I might be mistaken. I don't know. Let me see. Of course not. So he wasn't aligned with Lady Sarys, okay. But my cousin Augustine failed to hold some city against Arthur Lewin, and my grandfather hired him and gave him significant support before his identity was revealed. His grandfather hired him. When did Arthur get hired by his grandfather? I'm so confused. Okay, let's keep reading. And that is apparently all it takes to damn our entire blood. Sending an 80... His grandfather hired him. I might be wrong. I can't remember who these people are. I think Valen is him from the school. I think Valen is him from the school that was with the group of kids that was bullying Seth. I believe that's him. But Augustine, I don't remember who that is. His grandfather hiring Arthur, I don't even remember that. Because the only person who really like, quote unquote, hired him and was giving him a lot of support was Kara's family. I forget the head of their blood's name. I forget his name. But he was the one that was meeting him and playing a game of chess with him and stuff like that. So, yeah, I just don't remember everything, man. I really don't. That sucks. So let's see. Where am I at? Let me see. How do I... Okay, let's see where we're at. All right, Senate in 80. Okay, so hired him and gave him a significant support before his identity was revealed. That is apparently all it takes to damn our entire blood. Sending an 80-year-old man into war on a moment's notice. Can you imagine? The High Sovereign has lost his richer mind. Well, you're with us now, Miller said with a weak smile. Okay, so they're all like banding together? She reached out her hand to Valen, and the simple gesture was enough to crack his stone-carved interior. He took her hand, outwardly relieved. We filled Valen in on what we knew and had planned, and his face grew stony and distant again. That makes sense. Looking at how disoriented this rabble is, no one would think to counter us. Not the most battle-tested of groups. But if we stay close to the Ramsir and Frostbloods, we'll be well protected. While ensuring we adhere to the letter of the High Sovereign's commands. Enola said quickly, her voice growing momentarily within her voice growing momentarily within. Okay, let me reread this again. I'm messing up. Her voice growing momentarily thin with nerves as her eyes cast about like she expected to find the High Cyber hiding in the shadows watching us. Then we have our battle group, I said with a firm nod. Enola and Valen left to inform their bloods of their intentions, while Mela and I shuffled out to the bustle, or bustle, whatever the fuck. An awkward silence fell between us, swallowed by the greater noise of the preparations. Mages continued to file through the portal for a few more minutes while varying degrees of disorientation and resistance. My thoughts were a complicated muddle, and I could feel the same from Mela. We held hands, but I found it difficult to look at her. Dressed in her leather and chain armor, the runes on her back proudly displayed, her jaw was rigid with tension, her eyes downcast. We've been so close to a different life, but I felt like I had woken up from a dream all of a sudden. And the worst thing was that I couldn't even trust my own mind not to betray me. I had to keep my thoughts ordered and marching in neat little rows, carefully skidding around any rebellious intentions. I squeezed her hand. We're going to get through this. She tried to smile, but the expression didn't reach her eyes. All she managed for a response was a weak nod. Enola returned first, grim-faced, but sat on her path. Valen was there a minute later, his gaze distant and haunted. We didn't speak, only watched as people much older and more frightened than us struggled to follow orders and organize into battle groups. At length, the instillers deactivated the portal, appeared to work on changing the settings, and then reactivated it. How do they know where to send us? Mila asked. I thought perhaps it was a rhetorical question, but I overheard the Wraith explaining to Ceres earlier, and so I answered. The dragons have apparently all been drawn to the place where our world connects to theirs. We're being sent into a city called Voldoriel. Oh, wow. They deactivated their long-range teleportation gates and even most of their local gates. But apparently this new technology can search out and link to any active portal. All we need is for them to miss even one of the portals, and we can connect and infiltrate the city that way. And have they? Mela said. Missed one, I mean. Valen gestured to the freshly activated portal, and the instillers gathered around it with Ceres, Lyra, High Lord Frost, High Lord Denoir, and a number of other ranking Alacrians, all under the watchful eye of Parada. Seems they must have. I doubt there was any question. I don't know anything about this city, but it seems unlikely the High Sovereign would have left such a thing to chance, not for an operation on this scale. Suddenly, Lyra's group was breaking up, and someone sounded a signal. Group leaders were shouting orders. Battle groups fell into line, and my heart began to beat rapidly. Enola, I noticed, was looking away from the portal. I followed the line of her gaze to a large group of children being monitored by a handful of unadorned, who couldn't, luckily for them, be forced into war by the threat of their runes since they had none. When I looked back, Lyra was marching straight toward us. I straightened nervously. You found some people you can trust to have your back? That's good. She began without preamble. Place yourselves near the middle of the line if you can. Avoid being on the front line, but being too near the rear could result in you meeting an already engaged Voldorian defense effort. Don't be heroes, but, she paused, rolling her words around in her mouth. This thing we must do. There is no reason to make yourselves villains, either. Trust that. So what they could do, so I'm thinking about this, right? So what they could do to satisfy their consciousness and their morals, what they could do is fight, but not try to kill. You get what I'm saying? So when it comes to the Dacathans that they got to fight or whatever, who's protecting their land and shit, they can fight them, but not use any spells that will like gravely wound them. Maybe just knock them out, or maybe just be on the defensive and not really try to kill anybody. I think that's one way that they can handle this whole fight, because you're doing what a grown-up wants you to do, but you're not doing everything that he wants you to do. So I think that's one way of them fighting that they can do. They can just try to like stun people, knock people out, or maybe just be defensive and just not really make any like major attack. So that's what I can see them doing. And she made me think about that when she was like, don't be heroes and stuff like that. So I'm just like, yeah, so they can just go about it that way. So she paused, rolling words around her mouth. This thing we must do. There's no reason to make yourselves villains, right? So don't be coming in there slaughtering people and shit, having the Dicathlians hate you, right? Be a villain. Trust that there is more to all this than you want, than what you can see. And protect yourselves while being true. See? Protect yourself, right? Defend yourself, but also be true to what you believe. So whatever you believe is right, be true to that while also defending yourself, which just means to me, defend yourself and don't kill anybody. That's what it means. The world has changed a lot in the last 2 years for all of us. Don't despair that this change will result in nothing but a reversion to the worst of us. Understand? A chill ran on my back. Although Lyra's words were directed to all four of us, her eyes stayed on mine the entire time. I nodded weakly. Of course, Lady Lyra, and thank you for everything. She smiled very slightly. I'll see you on the other side, Seth Melview, you and your friends. We found ourselves being herded towards a growing line of battle groups queued up to march through the portal. Although the gate on this end was wide enough for several people to walk through abreast, word went down the line that the receiving gate could only receive 4 at once, and so each battle group would step through together, one after another. It seemed somehow to take both a very long time and feel like time was moving very quickly, like it was fading in and out around me as the first battle groups, those brought by some of the high bloods from Alacrity, actual organized mages with then proper equipment and training. Marching to the bright, opaque rectangle of the portal behind Lady Ceres, her retainer, we haven't heard about Saurith in a minute, and Lyra, who took the lead like a puncture through a dam, we began flowing into the little gap, disappearing 4 by 4. My imagination surged and tumbled, conjuring all kinds of scenarios about what was happening on the other side. And then suddenly we were standing directly in front of the portal. Anvald, a broad man with shaved head, who had once been the High Mage of the Ascenders Association, was waving us through the portal. The Wraith Prahata was glowering at us with unconcealed derision from Anval's side. I glanced to my left, but Enola was staring straight ahead into the portal. To my right, Mela was clutching her weapon so tightly that her knuckles had gone bone white. On her other side, Valens sucked his teeth and gave me a sharp nod. As one, we marched into the opaque surface of the portal. The ground was ripped away beneath my feet, and I felt myself hurtling across the. You know what's so crazy? You know what's so crazy about this shit is that in the grand scheme of things, like when you consider the power levels of the dragons, the power levels of a group of wraiths, the power level of Arthur, Winsome, all the other Asuras, like they're ants. Like they are legitimately ants. They're ants going through the portal to the slaughter. Like Arthur, some dragons, a bunch, they could end all their lives so quickly with just like one spell. And it's just like the power gap is just so crazy at this point that they're literally ants going into the slaughter. If they were to like face up against an Asura, face up against Arthur. Like, I was thinking to myself, like, if Arthur was by himself, could he take everybody out, this whole group? Like, he probably could. Like right now, Arthur, he probably could just take everybody out. And it's just so crazy to me. It's just like their lives is just like that easy can just be snuffed out. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy to like just to see like the difference in just like what you're actually dealing with and why they call them gods and sovereigns and shit like that. Like, there's a reason for it. Like, they can, it's a whole different level, man. And they about to go and fight against like regular Dicathlians. They ain't got to deal with that. At least they ain't got to deal with that for the time being, because whatever the hell Vakajor and the rest of them are doing, they're distracted. So that's crazy, man. Okay, so her knuckles went bone white. The ground was ripped beneath my feet, and I felt myself hurtling across the continent. The sensation lasted only a second or two. Then I stumbled out into a dark, dusty, cramped space beyond, nearly running into the back of a middle-aged caster who had been in line ahead of me. The chamber containing the receiving portal had practically collapsed in some kind of magical explosion, and the mages ahead of us were forced to crawl over the rubble. Enola wasted no time in following them, forcing the rest of us to hurry after her because Enola's the leader, right? Because she's the strongest. Forcing the rest of us to hurry after her as she pushed the mage ahead of us with a hand on his back. Spellfire crackled and boomed from beyond the collapsed hallway. It wasn't a long tunnel, but the difficulty in navigating it had caused our forces to become congested there, slowing our progress to a crawl. Through the rubble and the occasional space between bodies, I could see other Alacrians fighting beyond the opening, and beyond them, a massive underground cavern, the likes of which I've never even imagined. Seth, be ready with the shield, Enola ordered with a quick look over her shoulder. Mela, you stay back with Seth. Use your abilities as a sentry to read the cavern. Search for the professor. You remember what his presence feels like. Valen? I've been through all the same battle group formation training you have, Enola. Valen snapped. He had sweat on his brows, and there was a tremor in his voice. I know how to handle my own magic. Thank you very much. I swallowed, thinking about the runes making each of our lower backs. Be careful with your thoughts, everyone. The tension, already thick enough to carve with a battle axe, increased more still. Now they got to worry about their thoughts and shit. Yo, this is wild. As the mages ahead of us breached the tunnel's mouth, they immediately joined in the fighting, flinging spells, conjuring weapons, and ducking behind shields as they attempted to make room for those of us coming behind them. If the tunnel became blocked, our forces would be divided and quickly rendered powerless, waiting to perish one by one as we broke loose. And I had no idea what would happen to the portal if it had no place to put new arrivals. The gruesome thought spurred me forward, and I channeled mana into my emblem. The magic activated easily, swelling outward through my channels and veins to wrap me in a comforting sheath of magic that emitted a faint blue light. It had taken a long time and a lot of practice to get to this point, and even longer to realize the emblem offered more. I had only reached the first couple stages of its activation, but that was enough to understand that it was unusual. The officiant of the bestowment ceremony hadn't acted as if anything was strange, but I had never felt like the emblem fit into the strict categories usually given to Alacrian runes. Once the mana was clinging to my skin, I pushed it out and it flowed forward to cocoon Enola, and an instant later, she broke free of the rubble and a stone bullet struck her in the side, shattering and sending a forceful ripple through the conjured shield, and an ache like a punch into my core as the spell pushed at my mana stores to support itself. Still, it was better, having something to focus on. I buried everything else, all the fear and horror of battle and layers of conflicting emotions beneath the focus required to hold the spell. Move, move, move! A wiry mage was shouting, waving us forward. Break through the defenses and make your way into the city. Finding their lances is our only priority, so go. We had come out onto a kind of highway that corkscrewed around the outer walls of the huge cavern. The Cathian forces, made up mostly of dwarves, but peppered with humans and elves as well, were penning us in from the left and right, giving our newly arriving troops little room to maneuver and almost nowhere to go. The defenders were still struggling to get into position, though, and had obviously been caught wrong-footed by our sudden appearance. Spells rained all around us, and I expanded the shield out from Enola so that it wrapped around all four of us as we crossed the highway to stare out into the dwarven city. It was amazing. I wish there had been a chance to come here before all this happened. The architecture was nothing like I ever seen before, sturdy and purposeful, and yet still quite beautiful. I should have been studying these people, not trying to kill them. A stray bolt of blue fire impacted the shield, which was both weaker and harder to manage at this size, and it wavered dangerously. Seth, pay attention, Enola snapped. She pointed down the bend of the highway. There, that side of the street. If we can get past those group of Dicathians, we could lose ourselves in the cover of the buildings clinging to the cavern's edge. And how exactly do you propose we do that? Velen asked scathingly, looking pointedly up and down the road. Our forces are stuck. This portal has brought us in far too high. As if in answer, someone on our side conjured an enormous boulder of deep blue ice, which began rolling down the carved highway, glancing off the cavern wall and crushing the front porch of a home carved into the side as it built up speed. Quickly approaching the line of defenders, several spells broke or melted pockmarks into the ice. But many of the Decathians, I realized as I watched, weren't mages. They arranged their shields in such a way as to catch and corner the boulder. It slammed into them hard enough to send several sprawling, and at least one looked unlikely to rise again. Those behind shifted positions to drive the boulder into the wall. Using friction to counter gravity's effects on it. They were trying, I realized, to prevent it from continuing to roll off or to go off the steep cliff like edge of the road, which would have seen it plummet down onto the structures below. Several battle groups were following the boulder's wake. However, giving the doors little time to wrangle the wayward projectile. There, with them, Enola shouted, sprinting forward. I had little choice but to follow, and Mela and Valen were right there with us. Okay, so they've come through and they're in Vildoriel. And so I guess they're just looking for Arthur, but they're trying to get through the tunnels and the highways and shit. So I wonder who they're going to actually fight. Like, who directly are they going to fight? Our side plunged into their scattered line with spells and blades, widening the gap and forcing their defenders back. My stomach jumped up into my throat as I watched a dwarf drive over the edge by a plate armor-clad behemoth who appeared to have no compunction against killing. I had to pull the shield in closer to us, forcing our
running a tight knot.
red-hot metal bolts pinged against the shield's surface, and Enola was forced to deflect the blow of an axe that managed to sink through the protective barrier before I stabilized it. Her counterstrike sent the dwarf reeling, and I looked away before she could deliver a killing blow. But she didn't go in to finish the dwarf off, instead leading us deeper into their lines. Okay, so they haven't killed anybody yet, okay. A thunderclap from my left, out in the open air, above most of the city, sent a jerk of shock through my chest and limbs, making my heart thump painfully and my feet stumble. I nearly tripped and fell, which likely would have been the end of our push forward, but Valen grabbed me by the arm and kept me upright. I just barely caught sight of Lady Sarys and Cyrith flying in circles around a man in thick metal armor and holding a long red spear. Wait, what? I just barely caught sight of Lady Sarys and Cyrith flying in circles around a man in thick metal armor and holding a long red spear. Who do we know that has a long red spear? This shit sounds like Byron. But I wonder, Byron probably don't give a fuck. Byron's probably just like, oh, you motherfuckers are the enemies? I don't give a fuck what Arthur thought about you guys. I'm chopping you guys' heads off. I don't know. I want to see that fight. That's why I want to get the fight. I want to see that fight. Cyrith and Sarys against Byron? Yo, I want to see that. I want to see that. I want to see that fight for sure. Hold on one second. All right, I'm back. Just a second. Okay, so Yeah, I want to see that fight. I want to see the fight that they're having with Byron. So his blonde hair was flying wildly about him. His eyes glowed blue and white his eyes glowed the blue white of a lightning strike. Electricity raced over his armor and flashed toward the highway. I wonder if they got him some special armor from Gideon and Ren. I wonder if that's for like something that like can help out his spells and shit, so like he can channel lightning better or something. So electricity raced over his armor and flashed toward the highway behind us, directly at the knot of Alacrians holding the tunnel entrance. Black mist boiled out of thin air and swallowed the lightning, unmaking the spell. That's got to be Ceres. With little attention to spare, I still felt a primal shock deep in my core as I watched the three exchange spells and blows, unable to believe that this single knight was holding his own against a scythe and retainer. Bruh, yo, like, they really got that power level jump. Like, it's crazy. That's crazy. That's great. I wish they would have showed more of their progression. You know, they went from like, can barely fight a retainer to now he's fighting a scythe and a retainer. Like, that's crazy. That's a big ass jump. I just wish they would have showed more of that progress, you know? But a punishing vibration, visible in the air as jagged black lines rolled like a tidal wave across Dicathan's forces. Protective shields of stone and metal appeared to disrupt the effect, but they all shattered. The doors around us clapped their hands to their ears and fell to their knees, making way for us to sprint past unhurried. I don't fucking know. You said he went from yellow lightning to blue? Is that true? Did they say blue lightning? Let me see. His eyes glowed the blue white of a lightning strike. Electricity raced over his armor and flashed toward the highway. They didn't say anything about blue lightning. I know he had yellow lightning, because yellow lightning was displayed in the comics. But they just said that his eyes was like the blue white of a lightning strike. I don't think they said anything about blue lightning. Yeah, I don't remember that. You had to let me know at what point did they talk about him having blue lightning, because I don't remember that. But anyway, so where am I at? So the doors, yeah. Wait. Let me see where I was at. Okay, so the doors around us clapped their hands to their ears and fell to their knees, making way for us to sprint past unhurried, I don't fucking know what this says. Enola continued to lead the way, pounding down the paving stones of the curving highway in search for cover. More Dicathians were still pouring in from all over the city, and if we didn't find a way clear of the battle zone, we would be isolated. And I try not to think about that part of it. I've been so busy worrying about having to kill anyone, I'd almost forgotten that it was a very real possibility I would die in this battle. The knowledge settled over me with the weight of my own funeral shroud, and I angrily wiped away scarred tears. Yeah. There, Enola didn't wait for us, but jumped off the edge of the highway, fell several feet, and landed on the sloped tiled roof of a dwarven house that was formed directly to the cavern wall beneath us. Okay, so they're leaving the fight, so we're not going to be able to see the fight. That's whack. Valen followed her without fear, tossing a bit of crackling dark mana at a squad of approaching Dicathian soldiers as he flew through the air. I hesitated long enough to take Mela's hand, and we both jumped together. Obsidian bullets colliding with our shields in the moments before we slipped beneath the road's rim. I landed awkwardly, and my feet went out from under me so that I was plunging down the sloped roof like a child on a snow sled. Mela's hand slipped free of mine, and she caught herself. But all I could see was the looming end to the roof before it plunged down 3 stories into a garden of jagged rocks. Okay, so they plunged down, jagged rocks. Is anybody getting hurt? My fingers scrambled to find purchase in the grooves of the tiles, but they only fumbled numbly. I felt my heart stop as open air yawned beneath me, the jagged rocks gleaming below. I lurched to a stop, my plain brown leather armor choking me as someone held it by the back of the neck. Slowly, I was reeling back onto the roof's edge. Looking around, I met Enola's eyes. They were wide and red from the sweat pouring into them. Thanks. Bruh, he was about to die. He was about to die, yo. And she literally saved him. Like, man, he's really not ready for this. Y'all ready for this? Anyway, we won't get far without our shield, she answered gruffly, but she didn't let me go until she was confident I had my feet under me. Above us, Valen and Mela were carefully making their way down the slope. Why does it keep darkening like that? That's just so fucking weird. Above them, a dwarf peered down from the highway. His hands were swirling around in front of him, his lips moving swiftly beneath his beard in some kind of chant as orange light was condensed into liquid magma in front of him. Go, go! I shouted desperately, conjuring the shield again, having let the spell fall while I did the same and layering it over our heads. Enola didn't bother to verify what I was seeing before she jumped from the roof to the balcony several feet below. Valen was right behind her, Mela a few steps after. Blobs of bright orange lava splashed like thick rain on the shield. My mana popping and hissing against the dwarves' attack. Going down on one knee, I drew the shield in tighter, thickening the barrier. Then, hoping that I didn't kill the man, I thrust upward. The shield flung the lava away, spraying it against the cavern wall and up over the edge of the road. The dwarf yelped and dove out of sight, and I turned and jumped down to the balcony with the others. Enola was already climbing down a pillar, and Valen waiting just behind. A jagged fistful of dark mana ready for anyone who attacked in the meantime. I sent my mana to Enola, protecting her while she was exposed and scanned the vicinity for enemies. I've really been on for over an hour already. Holy shit. It don't seem like it's been an hour. A jagged full, yeah, okay, what the fuck? The dwarf yelped and dove out of sight, and I turned and jumped down to the balcony with the others. Enola was already climbing down the pillar, and Valen waiting just behind, a jagged fistful of dark mana ready for anyone who attacked in the meantime. I sent my mana to Enola, protecting her while she was exposed, and scanned the vicinity for enemies. I was wondering, I didn't fucking read that right. Through the glass-fronted balcony door of the home, I met the eyes of several dwarves all hunkered together on the floor near the far wall of the dwarven bedroom. So they're like cowering in fear. They're like not ready to fight. They're just like hunkered together. Okay, my chest ached as I considered my orders. Was attacking innocent civilians part of my mandate? I looked away, knowing deep down that I couldn't do that, no matter the cost. The ache in my chest moved along my spine and into my rooms, and I felt the magic seething, just barely within my control, and the barrier rippled and came undone around Enola. Thankfully, she reached the ground without incident, but I was left gasping and shaking. Mela was our sentry. She could find Professor Gray. She could, I knew it, and I had to protect her. I was doing my duty, following orders. The tension eased. The mana crackling under my skin, soothing, returning to my control. So he was losing control for a second there, yo. So he had to tell himself, like, oh, he's protecting her because she can find Professor Gray. I'm following my orders, and his mana got under control. That's crazy. I conjured the barrier again, wrapping it around Mela as she descended. Trembling, I followed, doing my best to keep the shielding mana in place, even as my mind went numb to the fear again. I leaned into the sensation of conjuring the spell, using it to force everything else beneath the surface. You all right? Valen asked as he shimmied down after me. Unable to speak, I only nodded before turning away and hiding my face. Enola was scanning the narrow street. It was covered into the wall with surprisingly large houses lining either side. Yet more houses clung to the cavern wall below us. There, a gruff voice said. 2 Dicathians had rounded the edge of the neighboring street, catching us standing open in the street. Valen threw a spell at Enola Valen threw a spell as Enola put herself between us and them, urging Mela to run in the other direction. One of the Dicathians, an elf by the look of her, was holding a strange 2-handed blade. The metal was blackened and gleamed with dim orange veins, and there was a strange bulkiness to the guard and handle, which fit awkwardly within her hands. Even as I noticed it, it flared orange with a blistering heat. I could feel from 20 feet away. Elves can't use fire attribute mana. Are these the weapons? Are these the weapons? The thought came up from nowhere. Some factoid sealed away for later use during my study of Dicathi. I was still wondering about it as the two Dicathian soldiers charged. I stumbled back farther, keeping Mela behind me and my focus on Enola in order to shield her. Valen hurled his spells, but the elf moved with stunning quickness for someone without a mana signature. She must be the soldier that was helping Gideon. I don't know. But then you got Claire. Claire Bladeheart was there too. But she's not an elf, obviously, so it's not her. She must be another person that was helping during the experiments and shit that Gideon and Ren was doing. Okay, let's read this. All right, so I stumble back, keeping Mela behind me, and my focus on Enola and Shooter. Valen hurled his spells, but the elf moved with stunning quickness for someone without a mana signature, flowing like wind around the black bolts of mana. When the orange blade carved towards her hip, Enola dodged instinctively, but didn't bring her own blade to counter, instead aiming a quick counter blow at the elf's arm. A gasp burst from my lips as the sword carved through the mana I was conjuring. Oh shit, yo. Just barely missing Enola. Her own surprise sapped the strength from her swing, and her mana-imbued blade slid over the elf's armor harmlessly. But the sword was so hot it left Enola's hips scorched black, and she immediately stumbled back, a hand pressed against the spot in horror. That's crazy, yo. So let's see. So a gasp burst from my lips as the sword carved through the mana I was carved. So it carved through the mana, which is not normal. Just barely missing Enola, her surprise sapped the strength from her swing. Her own surprise sapped the strength from her swing. So it must be the elf. So the elf was surprised that it carved through the mana. And so because she was surprised, her swing didn't have as much strength behind it. And her mana-imbued blade slid over the elf's armor harmlessly. No. I'm reading this wrong. Her own surprise sapped. Okay, so this was Enola. Okay, this was Enola. So let me picture this right. So the elf was attacking her. Seth put up a shield. But before the shield could even conjure or, the mana was coming together, the elf's blade cut through the mana that was forming the shield. Enola was surprised by it, and her swing ended up not having a lot of strength. And Enola's mana-imbued blade slid over the elf's armor harmlessly, so she ended up not swinging that hard. I think that's what happened. I think that's what I'm understanding, because she swung her blade at the elf, so she got a mana-imbued blade, and it didn't hurt the elf because they slid over the armor. Okay, but the sword was so hot, it left Enola's hips scorched black. I say, when did that happen? How did she get hit? A gasp burst from my lips as let me see. Let me go back. So, because she dodged when the orange blade carved towards her hip. Oh, so that's when it was. So, when the orange blade carved toward her hip, Enola dodged instinctively, but didn't bring. So, I thought that when she dodged, I thought that she didn't get hit. But she dodged, but didn't bring up her own to counterattack. Instead, when she dodged, she still got hit because of the heat from the blade. Because it says, but the sword was so hot it left Enola's hip scorched black, and she immediately stumbled back. So yeah, I think that when she dodged, it kind of grazed her, or maybe it kind of came close, but the heat of the blade was so hot it still burned her skin black. That's pretty fucking crazy. That's pretty crazy. Wow. That's wild. She immediately stumbled back, a hand pressed against the spot in horror. The human man drove shield first against my mana the same instant that I forced it back together, sealing the wound left by the strange weapon. He spun, crashing a hammer into it, aimed at Enola's head, but the attack was deflected. A bolt of dark mana hit him in the chest an instant later, throwing him to the ground, the heavy metal armor over his torso blackened and torn. It might have been a fatal strike if not for the Lycathians' inherent ability to protect themselves with mana at all times. The elf carved into my shield again, this time attacking the spell directly and cleaving it open wide enough for her torso to leap through. So she literally is like opening up his spell. That's crazy. That's wild. So wide enough for her to leap through. She slashed at Enola, forcing her to stumble back. Still wrong-footed, then thrust forward toward Valen. Instead of trying to shield him, I wrapped my mana around him and pulled him away from the blow, interrupting the casting, because he can't shield from that weapon. So he pulled him away, interrupting the casting of his next spell, but getting him well out of reach of the fatal cut. But the elf didn't stop moving, lunging off her back foot and taking aim at my neck. Oh shit. My mana condensed around her arm, which stopped moving suddenly and with enough force to wrench her shoulder out of socket. I grew nauseous as she screamed in pain, the sword falling from her limp grip. That's a little difficult to say. Her limp grip. Enola's blade spurted from the elf's chest. Oh. She killed her. Enola's blade sprouted from the elf's chest. My mana slipped out of my control, releasing the woman's arm, and she slumped to the ground, blood gurgling up from her mouth. I was frozen, unable to see anything except the woman I had just helped kill. How much of her family died in Ellenwire with mine, I wondered, forgetting everything else. First blood, man. First blood. That's crazy. With the strain, with the special weapons too. But that was smart though, the way he did that. So like he knew that he couldn't use his mana to protect himself. So instead he used his mana to restrict her movements. Like the same way that he moved Valen out of the way, he used his mana to stop her arm mid-swing. And then it was enough force to dislocate her shoulder. And she lost her sword. And then Enola came in, boom. A roar of battle fury ripped the curtain from my eyes just in time for me to watch the man's hammer collide with the side of Enola's helmet, snapping her head sideways and dropping her as if she was full of grain instead of muscle and bones. Holy shit. So she got smacked in the head with a hammer and just immediately just collapsed to the ground like a sack of grain. That's crazy. Valen threw another spell, but it rebounded off the man's ruined-edged shield, which hummed as it pulled mana from his wielder to support the enchantment. The man's hammer flew through the air toward Valen, just as I was conjuring my shield again. I only barely deflected it away from him, but that forced it to strike Mela in the shin. She collapsed to one knee with an agonized moan. I took a half step toward her, distracted, and only saw from the corner of my eye as the man dove for the dead elf's burning weapon. Valen was falling back, hurtling spells, but the Lycathian deflected one after another. When he reached the blade, instead of continuing on, he fumbled with the hilt, and I felt the surge of magical energy within it. Acting on pure instinct, I wrapped him in a cocoon of mana, but he drove the blade through it, cutting his way free, issuing a wave of blistering heat that knocked me down and reddened my skin, even through an additional layer of mana. He raised the blade with a trembling arm while fending off Valen's spells with his large metal shield, and I felt the power condensing inside of it like a building explosion. What the hell is he doing, bro? What is he doing? What is he doing with that blade? A streak of silver arched through the air from our left and struck the sword. Streak of silver. A streak of silver. Ellie? Maybe she got Silverlight to work? A streak of silver arched through the air from our left and struck the sword, knocking it from the man's grip, sending it flying. It struck into the side of the house. There was a flash of heat and light, and I was suddenly lying face down on the ground, 10 feet from where I started. The Decathian, Valen, and Mela were similarly prone. Soft soled boots hit the ground with a patter only barely audible over the ringing in my ears, and then a pair of legs appeared in my vision. I looked up into the gleaming point of a bright white mana arrow. Following the arm that drew the bow's string, I found myself gazing in shock into a familiar face. Eleanor? She scowled, her eyes red with a face both fierce and full of rage, my only thought, empty of any real sense. What was that expression? It seemed so unlike the girl I had met in the relic tombs. Don't move, Seth. Don't make me kill you. Bro, yo, don't make me kill you, yo. Okay, yo. Eleanor, man, she's becoming a she's becoming, yo. She literally came in there and hit the sword, so whatever he's about to do, he's about to make some explosion with the sword, whatever, hit the sword out of his way, everybody on the ground. She come walking up, Boo's gotta be around the corner somewhere. She's scowling on her face. She's like, don't move, Seth. Don't make me kill you. That's crazy, yo. That's wild. And then that's it. That's where we end up. That's cool. That's cool. I kind of like how it ended like that. I kind of like how that ended. But yeah, so we now get to see the actual weapons in their full glory, right? We get to see what they can actually do. And so far, it seems like they might have different modes, right? So they got like mana shields that can utilize the user's mana to like power the shield and block all these crazy ass spells. So that's dope. I'm gonna say that Byron probably got some cool ass armor to help him out. So they probably made some cool ass armor. And then that sword is crazy. That sword can cut through mana like butter. And apparently it can do something else too. He's doing something with the hilt, he said, fumbling, like building up energy. So it might be able to do like a fucking shockwave or something crazy. That's pretty wild. And so I wonder what Ellie wants to do now. See, I'm trying to remember what type of conversation did Ellie have with Seth. I'm trying to remember when they met. I'm guessing it had to be when they were in the relic tombs and Saris and all the rest of them were there. Mela was there and she was like talking to people, getting to know people. I think she kind of made a friend while she was down there too. Cause it was right after they got out of that, the training montage where they was gathering XP and shit. So that's crazy though. That's crazy. She came in like, don't move, Seth. Don't make me kill you. That's dope. That's crazy. Okay, so that's where we're at. I don't know when the next chapter is gonna come out, but it'll be out at some point. And so that's where we're at, man. That's where we're at. What do y'all think about this chapter? I thought the chapter was cool. I thought it was cool. I give it like a 7.5, 7.5 out of 10. I kind of like, I liked Seth and Mela, the whole connection that they had together. Like how terrified Mela was and how Seth was trying his best to try to, give her like encouragement, trying to lead or whatever, try to reassure her and stuff. I like that stuff. That's good on Seth on that part. Valen still, Valen and shit, but he's like looking out, helping out Seth, keeping him upright and shit. And Nola coming into that leadership role, I think that's good. That makes sense for her. And she has like a soft heart for kids. You remember when Saris was fighting, no, it wasn't them. When Perhata and the Wraith group, when they were fighting the one sovereign, whatever the hell his name is, I'm not about to think too hard about his name. But when they was fighting that sovereign that was there, and Saris and Lyra were there, they were trying to protect as many people as they could, right? Using shields and shit, trying to protect everybody. Enola was the one that like went toward the children and like was keeping the children safe. And then we know in this chapter, Enola was looking back at the children who didn't have any runes and who wasn't going to the fight, but their blood and their family was. She was looking at them, and so she has a soft spot for kids. That's kind of what Keybone's getting shown. She has a soft spot for kids. Kind of like Darren too. Who's taking care of the foster kids back at his house too. So, so I think that was cool. I like Ellie showing up. That was cool. I wonder what she's gonna do next. And so yeah, this chapter was straight. And they killed the lady, the elf. I didn't know if they was gonna do it, but Enola killed her. Seth restricted her, and then Enola came in with the blow in her chest. So I didn't know exactly how that was gonna happen. But let me see what else you guys have said, because I don't know why I keep on the Lancer. Yeah, Byron was dope. Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that, listen, I knew Micah was the weakest. I knew that she was the weakest. She's always been the weakest. It went, all right, so what the hell was the dwarf name who betrayed them with the magma? I think his name was, I don't know. But y'all know who I'm talking about, right? So the dwarf with the magma, that was one of the Lancers that betrayed them, right? So I think the power level went, Varay was always the strongest. Everybody already knew Varay was the strongest. Varay always been the strongest. So it was when Varay was the strongest. I think Byron and the magma dude were like kind of on the same level. They were like really close to each other. Maybe Byron was a tiny bit stronger than the magma dude. No, I'm lying. I'm fucking lying right now. I literally forgot about Aya, bro. I forgot about Aya. I think it was Aya, right? Am I crazy? Anyway, she was the second strongest. So it went, as far as the power levels went, it went, Varay was the strongest lance, Aya was the second strongest lance, and then after that, it might have been Byron, maybe the dwarf. They're kind of like back and maybe, like really, really close, maybe tied. And then Micah was always the weakest in my eyes. Maybe she was just as strong as the magma dwarf, but I'm not entirely sure. But Aya was strong as shit, man. She fucked up the magma dwarf in the tunnel, in the cave and shit. Fucking sucked out his air and out of his lungs and burned him up. Took his life away. Like, that was wild. Anyway, it's fucked up shit. Imagine if she got the training. And if she could, man, she'd be a beast, yo. She'd be a beast right now. But yeah, I was shocked about Byron, though. I was shocked that he got that strong. Like, they literally could barely compete. Like, they couldn't even beat Lyra, to be honest with you. They couldn't even beat Lyra at first. But now they're taking on a Scythe and a Retainer, so that's crazy. That's crazy, the power level. And then he got the spear, so that boosted him up a little bit too. So yeah, I wish we would have got like the Byron fight though. That would have been dope. Same thing with the fight with Micah and Dragoth, which they didn't say it was Dragoth, but we're thinking that it was Dragoth. Like, I wish that we got like a little bit of that fight too. We only got like just the aftermath of it, the start and then the aftermath. So, but all in all, I thought this chapter was cool. I give it like a 7.5 out of 10. This was cool. And yeah, so I'm wondering what Ellie's gonna do next. That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering what she's gonna do next. But the next chapter, whenever it comes out, I don't know. If it comes out Sunday, if it comes out tomorrow, I might make a video tomorrow because I'm not gonna actually do tomorrow afternoon. So maybe tomorrow. But if it doesn't, then I'll just wait until either Friday or Saturday. I thought I was gonna have 2 chapters. I really did, but I didn't have 2 chapters today. But as far as that goes, I'm reading another book. I plan on making a review about the other book that I read, but I want to tell you guys about this story because I'm not sure exactly what you guys are into specifically, but I'm into the fantasy stuff. So pretty much anything that's fantasy, I kind of gravitate towards it. That's kind of what I go to. But I'm reading this other story by Brian Stavely, and that story's pretty cool so far. That story's pretty cool. It's about like this king, this emperor, Yeah, it's supposed to be late. Yeah, Micah, it's supposed to be late. Um, that's what Tournament posted, said that it was going to be delayed or whatever. But yeah. So the story I'm reading right now is about this Brian Staveley guy. It's basically about this this uh this king, this emperor. He's got 3 kids, 2 boys, 1 girl. He sent them off on like sent them to different areas to like train and like have them do their own path of stuff or whatever. And he ended up getting killed. The emperor ended up getting murdered, and so now his son, who's the heir to the throne, he has to try to come back and take his throne. But there's a lot of other shit going on, and the brothers and sisters, they don't really know each other that well because they haven't been around each other for like 8 years. One went off to some academy to start training some crazy ass like fucking like I mean, basically pushing them to think about the military, but then like times it up by like 5, like pushing them to the absolute breaking point so they can it's just crazy. So he went training there. The other kid went with a bunch of monks, and he went training with these monks to like master his emotions and master his, to take away emotions and shit to where he can be emotionless, and he like all types of crazy ass shit. He went there, and then his daughter ended up staying, and she pretty much got raised to be smart, to be good with finances and understand the people, that type of thing. But then the dad ended up getting killed, and the son got to take the throne. The one who went with the monks, he got to take the throne. But then people trying to kill the family line, and it's a lot of, you got magic, you got powers, you got fucking some world building because you got these mythical creatures. They're kind of like gods, and they inhabited the planet, and then it's a lot of shit going on. But it's dope though. I like it. It's cool. It's cool so far. I'm gonna make a review about the first book, but it's called it's what does I say it was called? I forget what I said it was called. Let me say the name of it exactly, because I should have it on here. It's called The Emperor's Blaze by Brian Staveley. The Emperor's Blaze. So if you're interested in that, that's pretty cool. You guys can check it out. It's on the app, the Everand app I had told y'all about. It's on the app. But that's it, man. That's pretty much it for this video. I thought the chapter was cool. Hopefully the next chapter comes out soon. I'll get the video talking about that chapter. And I'm just curious to see what Ellie's gonna do. I'm curious to see what Ellie's gonna do, man, because she's a badass at this point now. And I'm not sure if she's got Silverlight activated or not, or she just got a regular bow, but I'm curious how she's gonna handle the rest of them and what she's gonna do. Maybe she might like take them and maybe try to hide them away somewhere, but then, you know what she probably gonna do? She probably could do the same thing she did with Kara, probably like take away their mana or something. I don't know, but they don't have a rune, because Kara got a rune. I don't think that Seth and all the rest of them got a rune from Gideon. So I don't think it'll be able to work the same way anymore. So I don't know what she's gonna do. I'm curious. But that's crazy though that they said that Tournament rewrote the next chapter. So what? I guess it didn't go the way he wanted it to go. Like that's pretty crazy too. So, but anyway, I appreciate y'all coming in and joining the live. Appreciate the likes that you guys give, and you'll see me in the next video. Hopefully very soon, probably within like a week. Peace.